I have a belief that I'm going to spend the next 14 minutes trying to convince you to believe. And that centers around superheroes and their characteristics. Now, we all understand what superheroes are, right? As Americans, and in fact, as humans, we're sort of obsessed with the superhero concept. When we're kids, we dress up as superheroes, right? And then when we grow older, well, I guess things don't change that much, maybe a little bit. We're obsessed with superheroes. We love their powers, right? The list is long. Superheroes, superhuman strength, ice manipulation, mind control, superhuman speed, the ability to talk to fish. No, maybe not. Sorry, I have to take little pokes at Aquaman. Anyways. But I want to contest this thought. I want to contest the thought that we love superheroes because of their superpowers. I want to contest this thought. I think there is something else that pulls us to these storylines, something much more emotional and something, I guess, that is much more everyday human. And there is a single word that defines this: promise. The ability to make and keep a promise, a commitment. Now, there is a Dr. Robin Rosenberg who writes about the psychology of the storylines for superheroes. She has written for Psychology Today, Huffington Post, and in this article for the Smithsonian Magazine, she talked about the psychology behind the origin stories of superheroes. And in these 3 different types, you see a promise. Let's take the first one, for example. The first type is one of trauma, how superheroes are made. And this is best illustrated by the story of Batman, which I think many of us are familiar with. At a young age, Bruce Wayne would witness both of his parents die. They would both be shot in front of him. And depicted for the first time in 1935, this cell. Bruce Wayne, by his bed, says, "I swear by the spirits of my parents to avenge their deaths by spending the rest of my life warring on all criminals." His commitment, his promise. The second type, sheer chance. The origin story, sheer chance. Now you might think of Spider-Man, right? By sheer chance, he's bitten by a radioactive spider and gets these super abilities. Well, super abilities don't define you as a superhero, because if that were true, then all villains would also be superheroes. What defines you as a superhero is your promise, a commitment. And in this type of sheer chance, you see it in the story of Peter Parker. See, he used his abilities as a professional wrestler to make money. That was how he first used his abilities. And he got off stage once after a match, and there was a robber that passed by him. And he didn't do anything to stop that robber. Cop was winded right after, said, "Why didn't you stop him?" Peter Parker said, "That's not my job. That's not my responsibility." That robber would go on to kill Peter Parker's Uncle Ben. Peter realized what his uncle was trying to teach him. With great power comes great responsibility, and Peter Parker vowed to fight for good. A promise. And the third type, destiny, right? Even in destiny, when it's a chosen one, this is meant to happen, still a promise exists. Take Harry Potter, for example, so committed to good that he is willing to give his own life. In opposite, Anakin Skywalker is destined to become the greatest Jedi in the universe, but he never makes the promise to good, and he becomes Darth Vader. Trauma, sheer chance, destiny. No matter your origin as a superhero, the ability to make and keep a promise always present. This is something very strange and I believe very fortunate, because the only ability that ties all superheroes together, the only one common ability, just so happens to be the only ability that we can have as everyday people to keep our promises. Everyday people. April 3rd, 1968. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. continues his fight for civil rights in America. He gives a speech in Memphis, Tennessee. He speaks to a promise A promise that he actually didn't make. A promise in the Constitution that's made to everyone in this room, to me. A promise to freedom of speech. A promise to freedom of assembly. See, Martin Luther King Jr., he didn't make that promise himself, but he took that promise and he owned it. He took it and he made it his own. And that night, he would speak to the importance of that commitment. You see, Martin Luther King Jr. was a man of unwavering commitment. He received death threats constantly. 1956, his home was bombed. But a man of unwavering commitment, I said. And so, on the night of April 3rd, 1968, Martin Luther King Jr. would give a speech and speak to the death threats given to him.
And I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
The next day, Martin Luther King Jr. would be assassinated, shot and killed in his pursuit, in his commitment. The ability to make and keep a promise. I chose to talk about the importance of a promise, and for the first time, I handed out one of these. It's a piece of paper. I call it a promise card. It says, "Because I said I would," in the corner on the front, and nothing else. It's very easy to use. What you do is you write a promise on the card, a commitment. You give it to someone. You say, "I'm going to fulfill this promise, and when I do, I earn this card back. It belongs to me, and I will earn it back." You go, you fulfill your promise, you earn your card back, and you keep it as a reminder that you're a person of your word. Maybe someone like a superhero, or Dr. King, or my dad. They don't have to be big promises. They can be small. A promise to care about others. A promise not to text or Facebook while driving. Little things. They aren't big things. They're little. Maybe like donating blood for the first time, or something just to bring a smile to my grandma's face, to teach her how to Skype, because, well, she has no clue.
Don't show a picture, please. I hate the picture.
I have to show the picture, I'm sorry.
No, Lex Thompson, you do it. I get a little bit picture.
I love you too.
I miss you.
I never promised that I wouldn't show that video. Rewarding, I don't know what the word is. Sometimes you're just in a warehouse packing up socks and boots for homeless because it's going to be negative 10 degrees outside in Cleveland where I live. Or maybe it's something you don't necessarily want to do the act, but you want to make sure it's done. Maybe it's going to your local animal shelter and cleaning up some cat poop for a couple hours, getting attacked. They're not very appreciative. Let's face it, I'm never going to be a superhero. I can never lift 10,000 pounds. I'm in my 20s and I already have arthritis in my back, okay? I may never become someone like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the greatness that he achieved in battling the injustice that plagued our country in the 60s. But you know what I can do? I can keep a promise. I can do that. And so can you.